primers, the daily BP, getting up early, doing the bus rides, everything. 45 wins. Didn't lose the series all fucking year. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Let's fucking go!
Apologies for not. I hadn't a chance to bleep it out, but I felt that it was important to show the moment of the Erie Seawolves clinching their fourth straight postseason appearance to win the Southwest Division title, as they will come play postseason in September, probably with a different personnel and all that. But we'll get to all that. But manager Andrew Graham, stoked, and as you mentioned too, they did not lose a single series the first half of the year, and they won 45 games, and it went down to the wire, went down on Saturday night. We'll talk about that. The Tigers lost 2 out of 3 to the Rays, but it was salvaged on Sunday. And Max Anderson took some reps at third, and take that for what you will. And I'm sure Brandon might have some questions about that, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I wanted to say thanks to Sports Intel Ryan Walsh for having us both on, and Chris too. Chris came on, I think after I did. I was talking a little bit. We were doing some draft conversation, and of course Jaden, my young intern, or staff writer rather, was out there as well. So he was in studio. He was the only one in studio, but everybody else was there. So welcome to the Tigers Minor League Report podcast at TigersMLReport.com. I am Roy Huggs, alongside is Brandon Day and Chris Brown, who should be on shortly. But I just wanted to make a quick announcement that probably as of so I got some feedback from some people from the organization, actually, Brandon. So what we might start doing is putting some stuff like, put the show a little bit here, and if you want to watch the rest of the stuff, we'll put behind our Patreon.
Yeah. Are you going to cut all my wittiest bits out and put them?
No, nothing like that. But put the good, the juicy. Well, not all the juicy stuff, but some stuff like that, because
it'd be a short list anyway.
Well, if the sweet spot's like 30 to 45 minutes, so if people want to listen to us longer, they can, and they can go to our Patreon to do so. So, but more on that another time, another day. I just wanted to get that housekeeping stuff out of the way. But yeah, so coming up today, we'll be recapping the Whitecaps. The first half of the minor league season is pretty much over, and as of right now, things are ho-hum as far as like call-ups and all that are concerned. I know Chris has been monitoring the FCL as the Jude Warwick show continues to go on in the Florida State League, and the Tigers. The only game I saw was Friday night. I did see a little bit of Sunday. I was hearing the game on the way back from Erie on Sunday, but so I don't like the Rays are taking advantage of that ballpark.
Yeah. I mean, Yandy Diaz and Junior Caminero were hitting the living snot out of the ball, but yeah, it was just kind of one of those. I mean, Jack Flaherty's kind of like was absolutely rolling and is just kind of blown up twice in a row. Every time Brant Herter's taken the mound the last 3 times, it's just been an absolute storm of singles. Hasn't really been hit that hard, but you kind of figured there'd be a lull at some point, and we seem to have hit it. I think they were 5-5 in their last 10, and I'm pretty sure the first time that's happened this year. So yeah, it wasn't ideal. Everyone's nervous. Everyone wants to make huge moves right now, and instead we're just sort of in the dog days of summer beginning here, where like the next 3 weeks, like the Tigers aren't gonna do anything. They're just gonna try their internal options. We're going to see Dylan Smith. We're going to see Tyler Owens probably again. They're going to mess with that. And it sounds like, Reese Olson hopefully will make one more rehab start early this week in Toledo. And then you would think he would be ready to be brought back to the Tigers, and then they should be fine. Once the rotation is set back up, obviously they're going to need relief help down the stretch and in the postseason. But for right now, the Tigers could go like 40-46 and probably still make the playoffs. So they're not going to be in any hurry to do anything. They're going to chill and see what they can do with the guys they have on hand and who gets turned around and who doesn't. They're still swinging the bats pretty well. Torkelson has kind of gone into a little bit of a funk. Carpenter is a mess right now, and I don't know if that's hamstring related or what, but basically since the moment he had that injury, he's been kind of tanking. So, that hasn't been great, but at the same time, Wenzel is God tier now. So we've got that going for us. And then, Javi's still hitting. Riley's raking. Hopefully Parker gets going. And Gleyber Torres just continues to just churn out professional at bat after professional at bat. So I think they're fine. We all know that the bullpen is going to need to be reinforced, but for everybody kind of panicking and like already like deep into trade mode, like Tigers are not going to rush this. They're going to take their sweet time, both because they don't want to trade for a guy and give up prospect capital and then have that said pitcher get injured in the next month. They're going to wait as long as humanly possible and try to find guys who aren't necessarily about helping us right now, but about helping us, September, October. So I'm going to be kind of scouring like people coming off the injured list in July. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Harris doesn't like that idea too. We need a left-hander. We do need a left-handed reliever if someone can't get this going, because you see what Tyler Holton struggling has done compared to the bullpen last year. It's just, that was just such a huge save for AJ Hinch last year to be able to use Tyler Holton that way. No one could ever really do much against him. And that set the whole rest of the bullpen up. And now with, Herder and Holton both struggling, it just, the way AJ Hinch runs a bullpen, they need a killer lefty back there somewhere.
Yeah, one of the things that Raj and I were talking about off air yesterday was that the bull. I forgot what we were talking about. I forgot what I was going to say. This is my first point, and I forgot it.
The bullpen.
Bullpen. Lefty.
No, I mean I know what we were talking about, and I had a point, and I completely lost it. It was something we talked about yesterday, Raj.
Oh, about the arms.
We probably touched on a little bit of everything, but it's all right. We can keep moving on. I'll come back to it at some point. But no, I think that the Tigers going 5-5 over the last 10 games. It feels like a bummer, but they've lost 0 ground in the division. The Cleveland also went 5-5 in the last 10 games, and that's the best. Other than the Twins are just a shambles right now. The Yankees are 3-7 in their last 10. The Mets are 2-8 in their last 10. Yeah. Teams go through these lulls. I think. I thought the Tigers were going to win 84 games this year, right? And you bank all these wins you can. I never thought that they were a 108 win team, right? Like the pace that they were playing at. But these wins don't go away. So if they just play 500 ball, or you even said below 500, they're going to make the playoffs. Now, obviously, we want more. Fans want more now that they've got the taste for blood.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the Tigers will figure some things out, but. The thing I'm most encouraged by is the way that they've built their depth now a little bit, that you can survive players going through lulls because they have enough other players who can come in and pinch in and help. And it's the hardest thing to do in baseball and in all sports really is to be consistently good. Yeah. It's just, I think those of us who grew up watching like Prime Miggy just kind of took it for granted that he was just always awesome. Yeah. Like every month after month, week after week, year after year until, 2016 or whatever, but 2017, I guess. It's hard. Baseball is a very hard game. Little things that you don't even realize are going wrong, go wrong. They're like, oh, whoops, I didn't realize my shoulder drifted half a foot. But yeah, so as you said, Torque is fighting it right now, but Winslow has come from out of nowhere to bomb home runs left and right. And now he did definitely get a Yankee Stadium / Steinbrenner home run the other day, but we'll take it. Yeah, right.
They had a few. They had a few too.
Yeah. Yeah. And Colt Keith has been very good over the since May 1st. Really, he's been it's such a quiet, very good that people don't really notice. But he's it's like a 130 WRC plus since May 1st. Yep. And Riley Green is spectacular. So the offense has been okay. I didn't have any real problems with the offense over the weekend against Tampa. They were getting guys on base for the most part. They had a couple of those games where they just couldn't get them in. But yeah, the pitching is a concern right now. If Jack Flaherty can't get a little bit more consistent, I don't even need him to be like that dominant guy he was the 3 starts before the last 2, or just be a solid 5 innings, 2 runs. They can handle that, but it's like all or nothing with him.
Yeah, he is really volatile. I mean, it was kind of like that too, last year where he rolled through the whole first half, and then after that it was like 3 good starts, 1 bad start. But when it's bad, it's pretty bad. Yeah. But it still just looked like command to me. And I don't, I think there's a lot of people who refer to Jack Flaherty as like the number 2 starter, and I don't really think about it that way that much. But I also think Reese Olson is at least as good as Jack Flaherty is when he's healthy. Casey Mize has had a little bit of command trouble since he came back from the hamstring injury, but has generally still looked pretty good. Hasn't exactly been getting clubbed out there. So, I mean, they're not in bad shape. I think Sawyer Gipson Long has looked pretty good. considering he's only a couple starts in from a Tommy John and a hip surgery. He's looked fine. The opener strategy has been a disaster this year, which is just kind of funny because it just worked like such a charm last year. But I don't know if that necessarily means anything other than that Tyler Holton's command just isn't absolutely precise the way it was last year, and we all know he's not a guy who has like overpowering stuff. He had like 6 pitches so that he could use 3 different pitches against either handed hitters. And he was just locating everything perfectly and never leaving anything up. And that just hasn't been the case this year. And that's the hardest thing to project, is whether or not a guy is going to get his command back, to that level. Mm-hmm. Like, his command is still pretty good. His command would still be fine if he was a 6th starter. We'd be like, oh yeah, command and control guy. You call him up once in a while when you need him. But, the last 2 years, the Tigers have used him as like the workhorse of the bullpen. So, it would be nice to find something with him that clicks. But,
No, yeah. So that did remind me of what we were talking about yesterday, Raj, which was the idea that the pitching cast was great, but it is actually kind of risky. And last year it was great because it worked like every time.
Yeah.
But what happens when it doesn't work and your bulk pitcher gives up a ton of runs, or your opener gets you down in a hole 4-0, it screws everything up, and it can have a multiplying effect where it screws things up for multiple days. And Raj's point was that the doubleheader against the Pirates kind of messed things up just by having them, cram all that in one day, and then they had to go to Tampa. And yeah, that's kind of what we've seen is they're scrambling right now. They don't have a lot of super reliable starting pitchers, so they're doing what they can. And unlike last year where it was just, fairy dust after magic horseshoe rainbow, they're struggling right now. And but as you say, Olsen should be back soon. He looked good in his second Toledo start. He was throwing his changeup. It's, all there. He just needs to build up a couple more innings, I guess, and make sure there's no more pain. And yeah, then that'll make you feel a little bit better. And then, Montero is back down in Toledo, but they can bring him up at any time. He's been really consistent aside from the home runs. He's, it's an ERA that's just over 4, which is outstanding for a number 5 starter. So I think they're okay, but I do think they will look to upgrade.
Yeah. They will, especially when you're looking at the fact that Alex Lang, who's been pitching rehab, has pitched pretty well, but you really haven't heard anything about Alex Cobb. It's almost like, you haven't heard any updates I haven't seen any updates as yet. So it does kind of concerning, especially when I saw in Toledo and Erie this weekend. I've been paying attention to Toledo because first and foremost, you look at Toledo right now has been doing basically the same thing. They've been having like these bulk bullpen starts, and they are unhealthy. Their rotation's also been banged up. Erie's rotation's been banged up. Jake Miller's still out. No word on when he's coming back. You have now Carlos Peno's doing, a pretty admirable job. But right now it's Burhan, and, it's just been kind of like a hodgepodge of guys that have been piecing things together. And you kind of wonder then, everybody's talking about, everybody's all excited about Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal and Briseño coming up to Erie, but I'm more excited about, or more curious rather, what pitching will come up from West Michigan to help out Erie. Is Andrew Sears going to be a guy that can help out? Especially when you look at Binghamton, who has a couple really good. I mean, the Mets, as Chris and I were talking about this earlier. David Stearns is putting his stamp all over this Mets organization, as bringing in pitchers that go like, who the hell is that guy, and delivering. And so I think that it's going to be a challenge for Erie to repeat. But overall, in terms of but getting back to the Tigers for a second, as far as starters go, just getting something from Erie right now. Burhan might be a reliever, but again, if let's say he gets called up, that rotation, I mean, Jaden Ham has been clocked at 89, 90 in some cases with velocity. Yeah. So it's not a for sure thing unless he starts, increasing his velocity. Joseph Montavo is still out too. Yeah. So the fact that here they are, the Seawolves got 45 wins on a makeshift, technically a makeshift rotation, but a really good veteran bullpen and very good veteran staff. And that's how the Tigers are built. They're getting built right now because they have something something they never had before, which is depth. They have depth. They have depth to overcome this to a certain extent, but it's running really, really thin. Oh, John, thanks. We got a listener from Australia. There we go.
Yeah, probably wants me to put up that Ali Tanner video from the other day, but it wasn't the best outing from. Like I keep not getting great outings from him. Like the few times he's been on, like the first time he pitched well, but the screen was all janky, so you couldn't even see it. And then this time it was like 2 innings, and I don't think he got a strikeout. And it was like, well,
yeah,
but.
Kelvis Salcedo looks like he's pitching in a dust storm in the last one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Part of that is me zooming in so you can see because they have the actual like broadcast view as the small video and the field view as the large one. But yeah, no. The thing about Erie, like you said, this is why you have guys like Austin Bergner in your system, right? Like, he was a prospect at one point a few years ago, and it turns out that he can't really succeed above Double-A, but he's awesome in Double-A, and so they keep him around, and he was huge. He had an awesome start, so did Burhan, and Serwa had one really good start and one that wasn't so good because he's a knuckleballer.
Yeah.
But and
it is an older, it is, as we said, like it is an older roster. So it's understandable that people aren't real excited when they look through like Erie's pitching staff and like, oh, who's going to help us? There's a couple like relief options, but in terms of the guys who are healthy, there's not a whole lot going on at this point. And that's just how it is. And they, and they have an older roster in general. I mean, Trey Cruz, Carlos Mendoza, Ben Managerial, like these guys are useful players who might, someday get a cup of coffee with the Tigers, but they're not guys that are really going to come up and have an impact. And so if you're looking for big impact on the farm right now, it's a little bit bleak because everyone is young. Every single young pitcher that they drafted the past 2 years is now injured. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but only slightly.
That's not, I was going to say it's not too far off from the truth, Brandon.
Yeah, so it's been a little rough.
Diaz.
Yeah.
He's the only one left.
Yeah, Jake Diaz holding it down for everybody. So maybe we'll see some of those guys promoted. But yeah, there's not a ton of help coming from the farm. And when you look at the way the Tigers roster is constructed, it's deep as it is. And then when you look at the Toledo roster, there's a couple guys that we already know can chip in and help you. Malloy, Young, like not necessarily like guys who are going to come up and do a ton for you, but they can help you. Dylan Smith is back up now. We'll see if he kind of got used to the ball and starts to get his command together. Troy Melton got scratched last night or yesterday. And I don't know if that means they're going to do something with him or if he's maybe got just like a little injury. I don't know. Maybe they want to call him up and see what he looks like. I couldn't tell you, but there's not a ton there. So I understand the concern, but the Tigers roster itself, as it's already constructed, is so deep that it just feels like anytime a couple guys are struggling, someone else is there to pick them up right now. And the only place that's not real, secure, I guess, right now is the bullpen. And they're certainly going to have to address that. But I think if we look at who Scott Harris is, he's not going to go out and like trade for the best rental, like best, 3 months. He's probably going to think to himself, okay, who can I get that is going to help us long term? And maybe he'll trade for a starter who is, under control for next year as well. I could see something like that happening, a guy that they could use in both roles as a lefty. There's some things like that, but I just don't see us going out there and just, trading for the best rental reliever possible. That just does not seem like a Scott Harris type of move. He's always going to think longer term, and he's going to think, I need someone who has options that we can work with, and will be around for more than 3 months.
Especially when you're trying to address the situation, also long term, technically at third too. I mean, Keith has been seeing some time at third again. I know there's some people that don't think he's a long-term answer, but he's been playing fine. I mean, when he has been in there.
Yeah, he's as good as Young or Ibanez is really. His arm strength, we did go and look all that up, and his arm strength is comparable with those guys. So it does seem like it's kind of come back a little bit. Colt Keith was on the Have a Seat podcast with Benetti and Dickerson over the weekend, and that was really instructive, mainly because he addressed the thing that we're always bringing up about how he at each level he got his kind of face punched in and then had to figure it out. And he talked really candidly about that and about, like getting to rookie ball and just getting smoked and, talking to Alan Trammell, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hang, man. I don't think I can hit this stuff. And Trammell just being like, oh kid, don't worry. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
but it just kept happening to him. And, it happened to him a little bit again, in April of this year too. And he was just like, the switch is flipping faster for me now. So, it's starting to come along. So is Colt Keith a long-term third baseman? Probably not. I assume he probably moves back to second base next year. I would assume Gleyber Torres is going to finally get, a little bit more of the contract he probably expected last year. I don't know if the Tigers are going to be the ones to offer him that. So then you're going to end up with a hole at third base, as we always have, again, forever. And I don't really see us trading for Alex Bregman. I'm going to be so mad if we trade for Alex Bregman. Actually, I'll be happy about getting Alex Bregman. I'm going to be so pissed too. Like Alex Cobb doesn't even exist as far as I'm concerned. And you could have had Alex Bregman. You should have just freaking got Alex Bregman, Scott Harris. So yeah, your move now, King. Let's see you do some fancy GM stuff.
So Mike Doyle says that Colt Keith can't hit, but he's hitting 277 since May 1st. Did I miss?
Colt Keith is raking. He's just not hitting enough home runs. We want a little more pull power to show up here.
Yeah, he's got a 128 WRC plus at a 208 ISO since May 1st. So that's you're talking 9 weeks.
That home run he had the other day, the opposite that tomahawk home run he had.
Yeah, I was there for that one. That was just weird. Like that looked abnormal. It was just live. That looked like the kind of thing you see in Little League, where someone just kind of goes up and
it looks like the kind of swing you'd see in wiffle ball. No, wiffle ball. Like sometimes when they throw it up and the ball kind of rises up and you're just like
yeah. You just have to climb the ladder.
Climb the ladder. Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like a wiffle ball swing to me. But I don't know. Mike, I think he's hitting enough to give himself in the lineup there, but. I don't know. What the Tigers do have, like what I mentioned, the depth word is good because, I mean, for example, here we are. You saw that Candelario was released today by the Reds or designated for assignment. And, I mean, he's been banged up. And, you know what? Look, I used to be a big Candelario believer. Candyman. And then, I don't know what's happened to him, but he just, his injuries have kind of cost him, maybe he's at some of his power. I don't know. I don't know what's happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be 30, right? I mean, we traded for him in 2017. You know, that's just kind of the lifespan for a guy who doesn't really have the standout physical tools. He got a lot out of his game, had a pretty nice career. I assume this is kind of toward the end. I don't really see a huge comeback coming, but you never know.
He's only 31. It's. I don't know. A switch hitter who could play first and a little bit of third. He's bad on both sides of the defense now, but he's always been an up and down player, right? Like he had a couple of years that were very good and a couple that were very bad. We're like, what's going on? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, given that they just cut him, I'd be worried about that. Like sometimes guys it's just over for guys. They're like, oh, that's it. Like Jose Abreu was just done, right? He was much older, but it was like, oh, it's completely over.
Yeah.
And so hopefully it's not that, but man, I don't see them taking a chance on Candelario or whatever, but
I would really be interesting to see a whole series of interviews with guys about their last year or their last off season. Like, how did you know? How did you know it was over? Yeah. Did you just not put in as much work for one? Like you got a little bit lazy in the off season and just losing a little bit physically, like absolutely destroyed you. And that was the end or what happened? Did you just get to camp and all of a sudden you were like, oh God, I can't hit anymore.
Right. I mean, I've always been able to hit. There was the famous Ken Griffey Jr. story, right, where he fell asleep in the locker room. He's like, boy, all right, that's enough for me. I don't think I have it anymore.
I took a nap in midday. This is bad. Yeah. Bad time.
Then there's David Ortiz, who magically hit 38 home runs and 315 in his age 40 season. Completely natural.
Yeah, completely natural. I mean, that's not sus at all. No.
Occasionally it happens. Darrell Evans had some great years in his 40s.
But that's also because
I would not have pegged David Ortiz to be that guy.
But to be fair with Darrell Evans, Sparky literally dragged him out there because they had no other choice to put him at third base in '87 because they didn't have. Speaking of no depth there. Yeah. Evans was it. I mean, they traded Darnell Coles, I think, in the middle of that season. After he had a strong start in '86, and he just couldn't do anything at third, and they just, you traded Howard Johnson for a starter a few years earlier, so your minor league depth was zero. Joey Lornicki wants to know: do you see the Tigers? By the way, we have a super chat feature, so if you ever want to donate a few bucks to this site, there's a super chat, and it goes right to us. Do you see the Tigers taking on a salary bad contract to lessen the amount they would have to trade from whoever they're targeting? That's a good question, and the thing is, I don't know. Harris hasn't given us any kind of track record to indicate that, so I don't. I would think so, but it depends on how long the term would be. But I don't honestly. I don't know. That's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can tell that Scott Harris doesn't like to take on, big deals in general unless it's absolutely the player he wants. So I wouldn't expect to see a lot of that. They could certainly take on money for this year. I don't think that's an issue at all. They were willing to sign Bregman for, whatever it was, $32 million a year. So I don't think that means they're willing to spend $32 million this year, exactly. But there's leeway in the payroll. I think that much at least is probably true. And they don't want to trade their prospects. I'd be absolutely shocked if Scott Harris traded any of the top five. I'd be pretty shocked if he traded Troy Melton. I assume he's going to work with everything else, and everything else. I think we would probably all agree, other than like maybe you don't want to trade Chris Rodriguez or something, but by and large, the Tigers don't need a whole lot else. Like the five guys that they've got should be enough to give them two or three good players and keep this thing going for the long haul. So if they can hold on to those guys and deal from the rest, I could see that. And I could see them, at least taking on a guy who was maybe expensive this year and underperforming. Something like that seems certainly feasible.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking of what player that would be.
An example. Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, well, Chris Bryant from the Rockies, like he was with the Cubs and Scott Harris. He was with the Giants and Scott Harris. He's owed a ton of money over like the next 3 years. The Rockies are a terrible organization. Maybe they would be like, yeah, just take the money and we'll give you Halverson. And I don't think that would actually happen.
And get Kyle Freeland too. There's your lefty. Yeah.
I don't see that happening really. I think that it's more likely that we'll see like Brandon was touching on earlier, like just a random Jose Urquidy popping up, and who, by the way, is now a year clear of his Tommy John surgery. So if he comes up, it may be any time in the next 2 months where suddenly like, oh, Jose Urquidy is rehabbing in Lakeland tonight. Like, well, I'll be darned. And then now you've got a little bit more pitching depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be something like that rather than taking on some $90 million or something like that from Trevor Story's contract. I don't know.
And no one's going to be excited about this, but I mean, the Tigers also do have some guys that they probably want to see like for a few more weeks. Like you mentioned, Alex Lang, Tyler Madison's back, Tanner Kohlhepp is back throwing, Freddie Pacheco is throwing. I don't really expect anything necessarily from any of those guys. Maybe Lang eventually, but nobody who's going to come in and like dominate for you in the back end of the bullpen. But they're gonna take their time and see how those options come along and see if they have something there that keeps them from needing to go get like multiple guys. And then maybe you just target like the best, I don't know, lefty starter that you can find, and then you put that guy in the bullpen in September. I don't know, something like that.
So our buddy Mark Karash has floated the idea of German Marquez and Seth Halverson pairing.
We all like Seth Halverson.
Yeah, we all like him.
We like that idea.
And I've been Chris can attest to this. I've been on a record many times of how much I love German Marquez. I've been liking him since I actually came up with one of my first trade proposals for Motor City or whatever that crap site was that I worked for.
Motor City Bagels, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's shot. Hey, I don't care anymore. I just don't care. Quite frankly, when you treat people the way you treat people, sorry, I'm not going to be nice about things anymore. Anyway, no, but I think that that would be ideal. I love, and because you have to feel sorry for Marquez because he's doing everything they can. Go, hey, trade me, and the Rockies like, nah, bro, no, we're still in contention. That's Dick.
Yeah.
Is it Dick
Montfort?
Yeah, Montfort. That guy is like, hey, listen, you're a Rocky. You're a Rocky. You're a Rocky. And I that would be intriguing. I love that to happen. But I'll give you guys, one gentleman. By the way, good to see you here, Colin, in the chat. There's a guy who I saw over the weekend who I think the Tigers, if he could get up to Toledo, I'd love to see what he could do in Toledo. Has back end bullpen potential, and I was talking about this with Chris over the weekend, and just need to see a little more of him. Is Richard Gurash?
Wash.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody who actually it was funny. I had a really good conversation with Dan Ricklebaum, aka Rico, from the pitching coach, and he was raving about this guy and just how good he was. Yeah. But it wasn't even that, but it's just the stuff alone. Like he still has a little bit of ways to go, but as far as like qualification wise for strikeouts, He's got a K per nine of 12.7, and he struck out guys at 35% clip, just under what Dylan Smith was doing. And he's got the same FIP, 1.57, and Dylan's to 1.69.
And he's older. And he's older too. He's like been around. He's not a kid.
Some things. Yeah, he's 27, and he's a guy who I think if they go to Toledo, and if you could do something at Toledo, that's another guy you could throw in the mix there too. I thought his stuff was really good, 96, 97, like legit 96, 97, and it had a lot of. I mean, keep in mind too that Chesapeake or the Bay Sox are not that good, but still, I thought he held his own, and I don't know why I'm stuttering so much to think about it, but it's just because outside of him and Pettit, I mean, Pettit's the only one with velocity, but if Pettit was, as Chris mentioned, we were talking about this earlier, how come Pettit's not in Toledo yet?
The Tigers don't seem to love Pettit. Like, I like Pettit, but the Tigers don't seem terribly enthused to move him along. But yeah, I agree. Like, Guash's stuff looks really good. It's just, he's one of those guys who, every 3 or 4 outings will just throw the ball to the backstop twice, and you'll be like, what is going on?
The game in Reading where it was like really rainy and slippery, and then, but also to be fair about Friday's game, Valencia got crossed up a couple times. He got banged up quite a bit. The catching was, I'm not gonna lie, the catching was kind of horrendous, except for Alfonso on Saturday. Friday's game was just a lot of kind of cringeworthy kind of things. But he throws 2 types of sliders, too, one to the left side and the one to the right side. He can manage both sides of that. And that's a key pitch for him, too. So I would love to see what he can do at a higher level. Because Yosber Sanchez hasn't pitched since June 15th, and I thought it would be a chance to see him in the series. And he pitched a bullpen session Saturday, but that was it. So, and I thought he would be a guy, too, to be in the mix, too, at this point, and he hasn't been.
Yeah, he really has kind of struggled.
He did pitch yesterday.
Oh, he did pitch yesterday?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It wasn't good. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
but that was his first time back. And I mean, he throws hard. He has a pretty good slider, but he also has, pretty lousy extension and still hasn't figured out how to command everything. So, none of the relief prospects. This is why they're relief prospects, because they're irritating and you need relief the more you think about them. But
I would just, relievers are just impossible to predict. I was just looking. Eric Swanson has been released by the Blue Jays 2 years ago. He was a very good reliever. This year he's got a 15 ERA in 5 innings. It's like, whoa. It doesn't,
Yeah, it's a hard game
for you.
Yeah. Alan, that's good stuff there.
Yeah, Jose Soriano, and we take on that trout deal for him.
Yeah. Just throw in Neto, and we'll be good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love some Zach Neto. All right, so it's time for the Week 13 numbers with the slides. Here comes the Weber report, and we did a great job, Chris, with getting the setups done with the swing setup on Jace Young and what the differences have look like.
Yeah.
But there's I don't know if anybody's seen. Well, we'll post it later. But I mean, it looks like the 5 walks, 7 strikeouts. Looks like he's rotating his hips more too in the swing. But I was surprised, honestly, Chris, based off this, like looking at this and before the show started, it almost looked like if you didn't look at how they did against St. Paul or going 4-2 against St. Paul, it looked like they had a bad week.
And they were 1 inning away from going 5-1. Bo Brisky gave up a game-tying home run in the bottom of the 9th on Sunday. Yeah, they I don't know. It was a strange week. They had the first win of the week, I think, was the one where Riley Unroe pitched again and pitched 2 innings and got the win. Mm-hmm. He's got as many wins as a bunch of their pitchers.
He pitched yesterday too. Yep.
It was a strong week for some of the vets, right? Somebody had mentioned earlier that Malloy was performing again, as we expect. AAA is no trouble for him. It's just the way that the Tigers roster is now that he's doesn't really have a chance to play regularly. Badu had a really nice week, which you can count on him from occasionally, and that helped. And then, they got some decent pitching. Other than Melton, we talked about him earlier. He it's his 3rd AAA start, and he had one of those innings that he has occasionally that a lot of these minor leaguers have occasionally, where he just hit the 30 pitch limit, and that was it. He was struggling. I think I feel like he got the first 2 outs in that inning too, and then it just all kind of unraveled.
I think there was an error in there too. Yeah. Prolong the inning. Yeah.
And he was supposed to, I think it may have been a Hao Yu Lee era actually at second base. Maybe not. But he was supposed to pitch Sunday, as Brandon alluded to, and then it suddenly became a bullpen game. And I don't know. Again, we don't know if something was happening there, or if that was like, oh, hold him back just in case Casey Mize is more hurt than we realized, like something like that.
That's true. Yeah.
So we don't know, but we'll see. We'll see what goes on with him. Again, it's a big arm. It's a bunch of pitches for the Tigers pitching coaches to play around with. I don't know if there's a single secondary pitch that's above average, but you learn how to throw all 5 of them or whatever, and then maybe you can get by. But so it was a solid week for Toledo. Not back on the winning track, at least, after going 0-6 the week before.
Yeah, there was a big conversation we all had on Saturday where we're talking about the hell of a job that Gabe Alvarez has done with that roster. And basically, a lot of the people, the staff in Erie, was just amazed what he was able to do with basically he MacGyvered, like as someone said, tape, glue, and bubblegum. Or no, it was bubblegum, glue, and they said something that was actually profanity laced, so I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were going through and discussing, like, you could make a case for all these minor league managers for the job that they've done. But yeah, I mean, I think AAA manager, generally speaking, is probably the hardest job.
Yeah.
Although a lot of it is kind of out of your hands, but still, like, there's player movement all throughout the minor leagues, but not quite like AAA, where you've got, like, one day you've got a veteran, the next day he's released, or you've got a guy who's planning to start and know that the big league club needs him, or it's constant. And you see they'll call up guys from low A or high A to play for a couple of games, and then they're back down. It's to keep a team like that cohesive and not sad, as we often talk about the AAA locker room.
Yeah.
It's this tough work to keep these guys. And I mean, we've seen Gabe Alvarez has been a manager for, this is his 4th season. This is his 3rd.
This is right? fourth season.
Yeah. It's been nothing but good. They've had their struggles, but it's impressive for sure.
It is a hard job. I mean, you've got a couple prospects and a couple guys like Malloy and Young who are still trying to break in at the major league level. But then you've got, kind of veteran minor leaguers like Hicklin, Unroe, some of these guys, and you're trying to keep everybody motivated and get the most out of them all. But they're all in very different places in their career. And then, they just grab your starting pitcher whenever they need it, and you're like, oh god. So it's just a really, really awkward role compared to Erie, where that's kind of like the major development step where they're really focused on the prospects and doing everything the right way. To managing AAA seems kind of treacherous, and it's kind of interesting. I'd be kind of curious, like, as far as like career path goes, do AAA managers tend to become major league managers more than AA? Is this a lateral move, or is this helping him? I kind of feel like Gabe Alvarez eventually just ends up like AJ Hinch's bench coach. When what's his face? Lombard goes and gets a managerial job of his own. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen instances where players or not even players, but sometimes guys just instantly become managers. Like, Cleveland's manager, Vogt, right? Like he retired and he was a manager like a year later.
Yeah.
It's like, some guys just have it. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that Alvarez is he's going this route, kind of doing the, I don't know, completing the steps. And then I do think he will get a big league coaching job. And then from there, you start getting mentioned as big league manager material.
Yeah. And then one other thing I just wanted to mention, Bailey Horn, because we keep talking about lefties. Bailey Horn is the lefty with the best stuff. Just came back off the IL and, was a little wild, but he's a guy to keep an eye on. If they can kind of get him sorted out, I'm sure he's going to get a look before they go and make a trade. So he was up, for like 2 or 3 outings early in the year, but didn't make a huge impression other than that he's got a good riding fastball and kind of gives you like Justin Wilson type vibes with the
98, 99 with some good, good riding action. He's a guy that would definitely get some consideration for the bullpen late. So, by the way, the Tigers, I mean, they did sign Carlos Hernandez, which we talked about a little bit on Thursday, but it was. I know his bling game is pretty good, but
he's another one who, like, will give you 5 outings and look absolutely overpowered. He was sort of like Trevor Rosenthal when we tried him, like overpowering occasionally, and then he'll go 10 pitches and not have any idea where it's going. So I would like to think that the Tigers can sort him out, but he's been with, some pretty decent clubs in the pitching department, and they haven't been able to, give him a cue that's consistent to command the baseball. So I'm not real excited, but he might surprise us and rip off a little stretch where he's kind of good. And then we flip him because it's not going to last.
Yeah, it's if we can give a month worth of good stuff and then just kind of a placeholder, if you will. But so as far as Max Anderson, who leads all AA, by the way, in hits, he does lead. I checked all leagues. He does lead with 82 hits, and it was so. Here's a fun story. So I got to the ballpark early Saturday, which is really rare because usually I usually leave the next day, or I don't get to the ballpark early enough. And I was talking to somebody. I was talking to Lena, who's the on-field host. We're just making small talk. And then I look over to my left. I'm like, oh, who's taking infield? Oh, Max Anderson. I run over there and immediately take the, record it. Don't think anything of it. First I asked Greg, and he's like, yeah, that's fine because, they're what have you. So then I record it. And don't think it goes on Twitter, and I just put that he was taking field at third. That's it, because that's all he was doing. Like, he was taking fielding drills like any other infielder. Mm-hmm. So then somebody came up to me later after the post game. They were upstairs, and they're like, the team's mad at you about that. I was like, what? I asked for permission, like, oh, they were, Andrew Graham doesn't want to talk to you now. I was like, what the hell? I didn't do anything, and turns out it was just a lot of nonsense, but Graham was fine. Graham talked to me and everything, but it was just a really interesting thing. I didn't put anything that, like, Max Anderson's taking, like, he's taking third base stuff.
I can't really understand why they would care anyway, because everybody knows that they make everybody play everywhere anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's just standard Tigers. Like, if you're thinking about trading Max Anderson at the deadline, and the Tigers are working him out at third base, that might be a selling point. Like, maybe he's a little more athletic and versatile than we thought. He can make the throws. But either way, you would think it's kind of irrelevant, really. Unless he's, like, embarrassing himself and they just don't want anyone to pay any attention to it. I don't really imagine that's the case. Someone brought up Edward Cabrera somewhere up there.
Yeah.
I'm all for, like, trying to scheme the Marlins out of a good pitcher. Absolutely. Do I want to trade Tyron Lorenzo for and much more for him? I don't know. I don't know. If the Tigers think they can get even more out of him, then yeah. I guess I'll just put it that way. If they fall in love with him, if Feder loves him, or Lund, or AJ and Harris, like, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. But again, like, we see what these guys are like. They're convinced they're smarter than everyone in the room, and they usually are, and not always. Usually, and they're going to try to find a bargain probably somewhere. And Edward Cabrera doesn't strike me as much of a bargain right now, but he'd certainly help.
Yeah, anything. I mean, at this point too, you look at what the pitching coaches could do and crack their knuckles and go, get excited for that. But as far as any ideas when the trio of West Michigan is, I've heard the same thing. It's going to be probably after the All-Star break.
Really?
That's again what. Len Henning was wrong because he didn't have any sources about that. He was just dead wrong. But again, that's like speculation more or less on that, but more likely the case.
I just go, refer to what we've seen over the last couple of years. Colt Keith got called up right after, like, they were finished their playoff run in Erie, right? That was like, okay, all right. They were going to give it a go, and they didn't get it, and he went up. Jace Young didn't get called up to Erie, I think, a couple of years ago until late July, maybe early August.
Yeah, I think it was.
And last year, Clark and McGonigal got called up in, like, the third week of July. It sounds odd, but I feel like they almost want to wait until they can comfortably backfill the rosters with draft picks. Or unsigned free agents, however you want to do it. I don't think we've talked about it a bunch. Like, Scott Harris would hoard every player he could if he were allowed to. And he would have 30 extra major league players in Toledo that he could just call on whenever he wants. They don't like to get rid of guys
Yeah.
They want to keep everybody they can because they find them all useful in some way. And, they have cut some guys, and when that happens, you go, well, all right, that's not so great. But
yeah,
so
they really believe in their ability to develop guys, and the more talented players they can stockpile, the more they have a chance of hitting on somebody or somebody figuring something out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mitchell. I think the reason why too they're not calling these guys up is because they haven't put anybody on released anybody yet. So they still have to make room in Toledo. They still have to make room at West Michigan.
They won't even move like Bradley Unroe and some of these guys to get Mendoza and Cruz up to up and Holton up to AAA. We've
or
still got
Myers for that matter.
Bly Madris is still there. Like they don't like to let anybody go. It's true. I think it's a great point.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, we post all these highlights, right? And so that's all people see for the most part, and they go, my God. And with McGonigal, it's like, yes, okay, he does have like a 230 WRC plus. He is a monster, but I know we're still talking about Erie here, but I just wanted to mention that West Michigan is going to Lake County this week. Mm-hmm. And that Lake County has been like their kryptonite so far this year. And that was McGonigal's worst week of the year. It was Clark didn't play particularly well. Neither did Preseno. They have a ton of left-handed pitching. Maybe they want to get them another look at these guys to see, just to challenge them.
You got to build that Cleveland rivalry.
Yeah.
Hit Cleveland pitching and you can come up.
But yeah, that's something that we found, right? Like the Tigers are not, they slow play these guys, right? Like they are not pushing these guys at all. It's nothing like the Angels, and it's nothing even close to what the Tigers used to do with Avila and Dabrowski, where it was their whole thing was pushing these guys as quickly as possible, making them look like viable prospects, bringing them up to the big leagues, giving them a couple innings to tantalize people, and then trading them before the before other shoot falls.
Boom! Right here, Michael said it perfectly best. Mm-hmm. Before they move the draft, we usually see movement mid to late June. After the draft. And also the league all-star games. The latter draft is now messing with multiple moves. Thank you. That's exactly it. I mean, you're absolutely. Chris, you mentioned earlier the draft is allowing to backfill these roster spots right now because they can. I mean, it's an easy, especially some of the guys they've already scouted and that potentially they're very talked to about, like if they're going to sign or not. So that way, that first week of waves of signings, usually, I've noticed this lately. It's been the later rounds. So they're like, okay, go to Lakeland, go, and move in from there. And honestly, I understand. It's funny to me because I think the excitement of it all, that's like, why is he not in Erie? Well, why do you care so much? Why? I mean, because like if you're in West Michigan right now, and you're a guy at West Michigan going, whoa, crap, I could go watch him play. Go do that. Go watch these guys play. Go out and watch Kevin McGonigal before he gets called. Especially, I know Erie fans right now are probably going, but they've also at the same time West Michigan fans are like, well, wait a minute, what about us? Mm-hmm. Go and watch the guy then. It doesn't. He's going to perform at whatever level it is. The thing is, guys like Kevin McGonigal are special because they dominate the level. Colt Keith dominated Erie that year. He was in Erie.
Yep.
And so that's what I don't like. I don't really. It would be good to see. Sugat says this. It would be nice to see the older Seawolves players get promoted. They want to go. Trust me, they want to go to Toledo. Chris Myers wants to come home. That's where he's from. He's from the Toledo area. These guys. I mean, Trey Cruz talked about this on the interview. We were talking to him on Saturday. He's been here for a while now. Yeah. A lot of these guys are. I mean, it's especially. Trey
Cruz has a house in Erie, and he's got plants coming in, and
Well, his parents
bushes.
Oh, by the way, it was really cool to see his dad was in town, but his grandfather, who was a great ball player himself for Houston, and somebody goes, "Who's that?" Like Jose Cruz.
Jose freaking Cruz.
Yeah, Jose freaking Cruz. Oh, I never heard of him.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, you don't watch baseball. That's fine.
It is what
Call
it is.
yourself a baseball fan.
Well, we've said this on every podcast. I think like for the last month, like it doesn't matter when they call them up. Like when they're ready for the major leagues, they'll be ready for the major leagues, and it doesn't really have anything to do with like the jumping of levels. But it is notable that the Tigers aren't the type of team to say to themselves like, okay, this guy's just handling this level. He's just raking. He's not really being that challenged. And we're okay with that for a while, like we're going to let him just like bask in it. And Kevin McGonigal is going to be God tier. And feel really good about himself for another couple weeks until he finally has to go up, and he'll probably smash Double A too. I wouldn't at all be surprised at all. But it is like an interesting note about their philosophy with prospects, that they're not the type to I mean, we see like the Angels will just like draft their first two guys and then just promote them to the major leagues in like a week. But this isn't quite their extreme, but they are definitely on the slower side of moving guys up.
Jake
But,
does
but
bring up,
like you said, it's a great point. Wait for the All-Star break. They're going to play in the Futures game, pack their bags. Max and Kevin are besties, and they'll cruise around and have a nice week and play in the Futures game, and then they can go to Erie, I guess.
yeah, you know what? I like what Jake said here. Still wondering why no one got moved to Toledo when Madrid got moved to the 60-day.
Yeah.
But then Colin comes up with the Toledo is very bad or heavy, which is true.
Yeah, and they started trying Malloy there. They've got some guys that they want to experiment with a little bit there. So I guess that, and Navigato has played first base, which is kind of weird. But
Yeah.
If I may make one guy we haven't seen as much like call him up, which I'm kind of surprised about, is Max Anderson.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we've seen some of it, right? But it's certainly not to the level of like McGonigal and Clark. Like what? And Anderson is dominating Double A. He's
yes.
yeah. But this is where I throw a little bit of cold water and everything. His walk rate is 5.8%. He's only striking out 15.1%, so he's a 343 average. He's crushing it. He's got a 178 WRC plus.
Yeah.
But Fangraphs has a nifty tool. You can go to their minor league stats and sort in a number of ways. And what I did was I sorted all the Double A hitters with a walk rate under 6% and a WRC plus of 120 or better in a season. And it's 32, 34 names.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very few big leaguers here. I don't know.
What's a Seager though? That's what I need.
Yeah. I mean, I will say so the next closest is Austin Hayes with a 154 WRC plus. So Anderson right now, and I set it to 250 plate appearances. Anderson is just like lapping everybody, but the names are like Michael Franco. Starling Marte was a very good player, but a lot of that was that he was also a very athletic, fast center fielder.
Yeah.
Max Anderson is not those things.
Yeah.
He's hitting for power, but yeah, the other names on here, it's kind of bleak. There's Stephen Moya.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, that's a good way to look at it, because if you're not walking at the Double A level, you're almost guaranteed to be chasing pitches you shouldn't be swinging at. But of course, at the major league level, it can be different because they want you to swing at good strikes, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if Kerry Carpenter, fine. Javi doesn't walk much. As long as he's mostly swinging at strikes and has power, you're okay with it. So we're not killing Max Anderson by pointing that out, but there are things to learn. I think that much is clear.
Yeah, and also too, this is his first year real solid production. I mean, like out of this world production. So it's like
only his second year of pro ball too. He's 23 and he was a college pick, and he never walked much in college either. This is just the guy he is. He puts the bat on the ball.
Yeah.
I'm just, there just isn't a long track record of guys like this.
Yeah, there aren't that many comps
performing.
For that. Yeah.
Stu Gotts, I was the one that took the video of him doing that, and I'm gonna reserve judgment because I'm gonna wait till game action to see, because it's easy to see how somebody can throw during that. But I think his glove can be, I don't know. I'm gonna reserve judgment. I'm gonna wait. I
mean, I kind of don't think he's. I mean, he's sort of just in the Young and Keith tier.
Yeah.
Right. Where like he's a perfectly serviceable second baseman. Like doesn't have great range, but he makes the plays, and he will probably make the plays at third base. But he's never going to wow you. He's not going to McKinstry. I'm going to use McKinstry because his arm has impressed me this year because we haven't really gotten to see him stretch it out. But he's not going to make those kind of throws. You're not going to see a lot of diving fancy plays. He's gonna stand there and collect the ball when it comes to him for the most part. But we know the Tigers value versatility, and they want all these guys to play all around the diamond. I think they feel like playing other positions is good for you, even at your main position, even if that's just all it is. Kind of what everyone else has to deal with. The angles. The way they think and move at their position. So I don't really make too much of it, but it's fine. I would just want to point out like another statistical article from Fangraphs, because Rotographs had a really good piece on peak projected MLB WRC plus on prospects, and that was Tigers dominant. Josue Briseño was right at the top of the list. Kevin McGonigal was way up there, and Tyrone Lorenzo was way up there. We all have concerns about bat control and whether or not he's going to strike out too much and chase breaking balls and have those issues. But the projections love him because he hits the living snot out of the ball and he walks a lot. So people could take some comfort from that. I kind of thought Max Clark might sneak into the back of that list, but he didn't. But Max Clark did hear the incessant criticism of Chris Brown about his weak hitting profile, and absolutely bombed one to center field the other day from about 425. So, which is just nice to see it's in there. It's in there like enough to be a 15, 20 home run guy and do all the other things he does well.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see him blast one. And then it was funny because Kevin McGonigal, of course, has to one up him and hit one like 440 to right field.
No, and I wrote an article about Max Clark's projection. I did kind of a check-in because somebody was asking. I did 3,000 words, which I haven't done in forever. And I was looking at some of the projection of him and where before the draft, the pre-hype draft, and I think he's projecting himself just fine. I think he just needs to hit the ball a little more in the air, but overall, the tools are there. I think that the one thing about Clark is going to be interesting is how he's going to adjust to high velocity at AA. I will say that there was one thing about Max Anderson that I noticed on Saturday, and it was the same thing with a lot of the I keep calling Bowie, but Chesapeake Bay's bullpen. I think it was like their second only to Erie is bullpen ERA. And they had some guys who were throwing 96, 97. They had some heat in there. Mm-hmm. And they had a plan against Anderson, and they kept getting him inside. He couldn't turn his hips fast enough. And it was the same thing with getting Campos away. And Campos kept swinging and missing on that.
Well, and Max, just like the way he just is naturally kind of oriented. We've talked about this too, like to go to right center, and he's trying to work through it, but it's not his wheelhouse.
He was late.
He was late and bomb something.
Yeah, he was late on everything. Like he had a couple of bats that were like 7-8 at bat or 7-8 pitch at bats, but then he would just strike out. Like just once he just got something that the pitcher just can blow right by him, and that was something that I noticed even with some of the other Erie hitters. But it was just a matter of them playing small ball and do little things to help them win. But yeah, that was something I picked up on Clark and even Campos too, which is Campos has been struggling a little bit at the plate, pressing a little bit too much. But Trey Cruz has been seeing the ball better, and he's been really good on the left side of the infield. He's the Erie, by the way. Another fun fact for you: had the least amount of errors on any team in the Eastern League. So, Joey, I did not read that ESPN redraft article. I have to check that out. And you said, what was that article? Brandon, what was that article you were talking about? Where was that at? The WRC Plus projection?
It's on Rotographs. I mean, just go to Fangraphs. It's by Jordan Rosenblum, but it's projection field top 30 hitting prospects midseason. It's like Samuel Basallo. It's Jose Briseño. Kevin McGonigal is fourth after Roman Anthony. Tyrone Lorenzo is fifth. So the Tigers have 3 of the top 5 guys by MLB projected WRC plus among prospects in all of baseball right now. So enjoy that.
I think it's projected peak WRC plus, right? Like, so they're trying to pick, at their best year, how good they will be. It's Rotographs. It's a fantasy themed article, but these often cross over.
And it's really just about hitting. Like, they're leaving defense and all that out of the projections, of course. But it's just hitting base for fantasy purposes. But it's still using that same formula to project.
I see. Mitch said 105 off the bat for Clark. Is that his highest EV? It's not. He got close to 107, 108 last year, I think, in Florida State League. He's probably topped that a couple times. He's not Kevin McGonigal. McGonigal has topped 110, 111 a few times, and he's certainly not Bryce Rayner. But
who I think about though is like a speedier Wenzel, like a slightly faster Wenzel, because Wenzel had the same thing where he was just like short and just trying to spray ground balls and line drives for a long time, and then they finally got to him, and he bulked up a little bit, which continues to hurt his back potentially. But he learned to lift some balls, and you don't have to hit the ball 108, 109 miles per hour to hit a decent amount of home runs if you can pull a few more balls in the air. So that
Yeah.
might be constructive as to Max Clark's path to being more than just like, kind of a depth and speed player who might be like a fourth outfielder behind Parker Meadows or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Perez's best skill now is the ability to hit the ball in the sweet spot in terms of the launch angle, right? It's between like 12 and 30 degrees or something like that.
Yeah. We're
and that was
centered around 24. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was not the case when he was in the low minors, like you said, and then he learned to launch the ball. Raj wrote an article about it when it was happening.
Yeah.
And I could see Clark doing something like that, and that's a kind of a fun comp that I hadn't thought of before. Is like, yeah, this is not necessarily, this is not plus raw power or anything like that, but he's got enough bat control and bat to ball skills to turn into that kind of hitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm not particularly worried about it, just a matter of like maybe he gets Erie and then just starts hammering the ball a bit more.
I just know that people are going to look at the way things shake out in prospect rankings and reports this year, and people are going to start to freak out about Max Clark. Mm-hmm. and there's already been a little bit of that like happening, and we're just like naturally pointing out like issues, not like, oh God, we're worried, like he's never going to figure this out. It's just pointing out like, okay, these are the things he's going to need to do. And Max Clark is going to provide plenty of value, I think, and probably be a pretty solid player. But if he's going to be like a really good player, bordering, I don't like the Corbin Carroll comparison at all. But if you're hoping that he's going to turn into that kind of player, there's time for him to learn to hit the ball in the air more and drive the ball to the pull field and put up more extra base hits and homers. So I wouldn't worry about it.
I use that comp only because I know it's the easiest comp to do, and I know I think Mark Gurash said somebody else, but I don't like. I wouldn't say Corbin Carroll is necessarily a bad thing either. I mean, as far as like,
no, that'd be great.
That would be amazing.
I just don't think I just don't think he's going to be that good.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
No,
okay.
He is neither as fast or as strong as Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, that's all. He's just like Corbin Carroll light, I think, and that would be a 3-WAR player every year, maybe. Yeah. So I also have to give a shout out to Sweetwater's in Detroit for their wings.
Wait. So
I
whoa.
haven't had their wings in a long time, and we went there in between the doubleheader of the Pirates game with Tiger Mike and Garage and
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And the wings were killer. It was maybe not the best move because we didn't really have time to hang around, and of course it was packed and people are just like hauling out like buckets of wings and just like salivating and drooling and fighting each other like dogs in the street.
As you should.
They were good. They were damn good. I'm not even a big wing guy, but they were probably the best I've ever done.
So when Tigers Jet UK was in town, I told Mark, go to Sweetwater Tavern. Go. That's what you need to do. And Tiger Mike was never been there before.
He took your advice.
Good.
Brought you up. He said Raj said to go here, and we
It's the best. Chris, we got to take you. I thought you'd been there before. You got to go there, right? It's the best.
Like the wings.
The vibe is spectacular in there too, because everyone just ignores you, and you have to like basically like chat all the waitresses and staff up to like get seated and like get everything sorted out, and everybody's fun at the same time. It's just has that like chaotic like hole in the wall kind of vibe that Detroit, I think, among most northern cities excels at.
Yeah, and not to mention too, I don't know if you get a chance to. Sometimes they'll bring up the tub of wing, like you see these wings come up in a tub from the downstairs basement or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's in this big clear tub, and they're soaked. You could like whatever secret stuff is in there, it's soaking. Yeah, you can see it. It's like, oh my god,
perfect. Like sometimes people will tell me like, oh, these wings are great, and they're just sour.
Yeah,
just too sour. This is way more complex. They were fantastic.
Yeah, not to mention too,
savory, a little hot.
Yeah, but also crispy, too. Brandon. Like about that too. It's not like, sometimes you get a wing and like every wing's consistent. That's the thing about Sweetwater. It's consistent. Like when you grab into a wing, it's crispy. It's all those things you just mentioned. Because sometimes you go to B-Dubs and it's like, I think B-Dubs sucks. But anyway.
There's nothing to hold the sauce.
Yeah, exactly. No, if B-Dubs wants to sponsor us, then I'll love B-Dubs all day long.
It's they floured them. Maybe they flour them a little bit or something. But they hold the sauce really well.
Ooh, that's a good call. Yeah, that might be a possibility there. But yeah, West Michigan, starting off the second half of the season, already in domination, 4-1 against the Timber Rattlers. And Gold, Frankenstein, and Murr doing their thing. But yeah, it's just a matter of time with Alex Lang doing. How do you look in rehab, guys? I didn't see the second time.
He looked fine. I think I put up that inning. Maybe I didn't.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, I just didn't see it.
Yeah, it's still the velocity seems okay. The breaking ball still looks like a splitter at times for some reason. He got a couple strikeouts. He also gave up some hard contact to Aaron the
Jed
pesky.
Aaron Imo, yeah.
He's really fun to watch. It's
I
super
like him.
annoying.
Yeah.
That's the when we talked to Jaden Ham, he was like, I don't understand. I could not get that dude out. He hit a double, like 3 doubles against Ham last year. And he's got a big leg kick, like that Neto leg kick, and he plays defense like Javi, but not nearly as
Not as good.
fast and athletic. But
Brewer shortstop prospect.
yeah, Lane looked fine. He looked healthy. It wasn't like I didn't have the velo readings because it's they don't have them out in West Michigan, and I wasn't out there watching him with the gun. But he looked like he's a guy who probably isn't. He'll probably be up in Toledo pretty soon, and probably in Detroit within a month. I would think, at least give him a look.
Just need to see that 85 mile per hour like hell curveball, and he threw a few that were really good, but I also thought he sailed a couple were flatter than we're used to seeing. But yeah, I mean, he looked Alex Lang-ish. Alex Lang adjacent.
Yes.
Just not dialed yet. Yeah.
And Preston Howery still looking good. I know that John Berberg is a huge fan of him now too.
And I'm just going to keep mentioning that his sister is an actress. She's on some show called Ginny in Georgia.
So wait a minute, Marco Jimenez hit 102?
According to Hasty on the broadcast, he said Marco Jimenez hit 102 the other day. Now I don't know.
Wow.
I was not watching. I didn't have the gun there. So these are the rumors. He's thrown triple digits in the past. We know that like 4 years ago, but I don't know. Anyway, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Minor league hard throwers are so odd that way. Like, like you think of like, Thomas Bruce or like Moises Rodriguez in Lakeland. Like you'll see like 99 sometimes, and then other times it's right back to like 94. And like that, being able to throw that hard consistently is the trick, I guess. Because Marco Jimenez occasionally has interested me over the years, but he's also been in the system for like 6 years now, and it just won't quite happen. Maybe he'll have a day like Trevin Michael had, where he suddenly is insisted on to drive across the straight and pitch 3 innings for AAA after not being able to break out of high A.
Yeah, I think it was 3 scoreless innings. I think he walked like 4, but he got the job done.
He got it done.
Good for Trevin Michael.
Shades of Bruce Rendon. I like that, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's. I mean, they're built about the same. I guess Rondon was taller and bigger, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's happening for Jimenez, but he's always had a big arm, so it can be fun. Freddie Pacheco is a different kind of. I don't know if it's happening. Like he can't throw strikes right now.
Yeah,
not unlike Walker Buehler.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to. I was just looking. He might be cooked. Anyway,
they have a kind of similar delivery. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Freddie Pacheco I've been waiting for like 2.5 years, and then it's just been kind of a mess since it's not happening.
So the other team that clinched this week was Lakeland. So congratulations to the Flying Tigers as they.
I'll be right back.
Yep, they're going to the postseason too, and Chris, it was one of those things where if you look at their roster on paper, just the amount of injuries they've had, the rotation's been kind of, but Gabriel Reyes has been coming on as of late. But then the name that struck out to me was Blair Clavo, who I haven't seen him in 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think was he in Toledo early this year? I don't know. Or Erie, but yeah, they've every now and then you check in Lakeland, like, oh, that guy's rehabbing. Forgot about him, but no, that they like we said earlier when we were talking about all the managers in the system have an argument for being doing a great job. Rene Rivera was managed to do this without their best player for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And as you said, the rotation is at times pretty good, but they lost Hayden Minton, who is kind of their most consistent starter. He went up to West Michigan. But they've continued to find ways to win. They've been piecing together the bullpen. Sometimes it falls apart. Sometimes it's fine. And you saw Franyerber Montilla is one of my favorite players in the system. He's just so much fun to watch. And you really hope that he can find some level of consistency, because when he's good, he's incredibly good. Like he was this past week. He did everything. He was awesome on defense. He hit for power. He hit for average. He stole bases. He like the Fort Myers announcers were like, get this guy out of here. Yeah. And like, you just want to see a little bit more of that, because he'll go through these stretches where he looks like that, and then it's like a month of what's wrong. He can't hit. But yeah, when he's doing it, he's really electric, and so I just hope I hope he can figure out a way to make that happen more often.
I just hope he adds. I mean, I'm just hoping that adding strength helps with that, because he does have kind of a long swing, and sometimes we'll get caught up, but he's so smooth. There's so much athleticism there. You kind of want to bank on it, but yeah, he does occasionally just go into these hell slumps where he's just getting dominated. So
yeah,
it's hard to know.
Sometimes he looks like he's way over swinging too. Like sometimes it's just like shoe tops. But Woody Hayden, look, I will say this about Hayden.
Woody Hayden is so fun.
Yeah, he's fun. The fact that he's the position versatility he's offering, but he's done a really good job of filling in for Rayner in just terms of just being out there, and guys like Pennington have been stepping up. Again, it's a team that's like even I think they were the only team with a negative run differential, I believe, and they were able to get it done. And so you mentioned Moises Rodriguez, who's on our top list. It is just a bunch of project guys. I don't want to say project guys. That sounds harsh, but
I mean, everybody at that age is kind of but talented.
But Santana came down to earth a little bit, but 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. He's always had a good eye. Don't get me wrong, but it's still worth mentioning that Santana still seems like we did a swing mechanics thing. Look, he's opening up his hips a little bit more, and his swing is a lot smoother. So I'm still rooting for him.
A little more level too. Yeah, I mean, he just seems like, I mean, he got into like some kind of like uppercut type hell.
Yeah.
The last year and a half where it just seemed like every other ball was either a pop up or a chopper. And it seems like they've kind of like helped him like get a little more extension through the zone and stay a little flatter without quite the whip. So yeah, I mean, I can't quite quit him either. Just like I can't quite quit Peyton Graham, but probably both of them are neither. But they're both, they're both talented enough to like be interested in. We were all done with Itzhak Pacheco until this year, and now he's like interesting again. Still striking out a lot. Maybe not really a dude, but interesting again. That's helpful. We like interesting better than just like, no, this guy's never going to happen.
Yeah, to that effect. Or like, I know Mitchell's Rayner gone. Is Franyerber going to replace McGonigal at backfill West Michigan? Honestly, I think that Montilla another year in Lakeland. I think he finishes the year in Lakeland. I think there's no rush for him, at least.
If he plays like this for the rest of the year, they'll move him up. But from what we've seen, he's not going to play like this. And they've got guys that they can play. Like John Peck will probably just play a bunch of shortstop. Jim Jarvis will come back at some point. I think he can help there.
Peyton Graham is still not necessarily like. Yeah. I mean, he just sort of doesn't matter. So they can play him at shortstop at West Michigan if they move McGonigal up. So. Franyerber just turned 20 too, so people can also be real patient there because he just turned 20 in April.
And I could see something they might even if they call McGonigal up, they might even send Jim Jarvis down to West Michigan. It's I don't think he's necessarily a high priority prospect. I think they like him enough to be an org infielder, but I think they're going to take their time with Montilla, and I selfishly I kind of want like a second wave. It's just so much fun having Clark and Briseño and McGonigal together. Yeah. I would love to have another wave of healthy Rayner, Montilla, and whomever they draft this year kind of clumping together and being the next group. So just make them sit behind for a little bit.
And maybe Jackson Strong, who is interesting, but still striking out and swinging at a lot of junk down there.
Yeah.
But he is kind of their sort of like, he's sort of like the straw that serves the drink there, lately since Rayner's been down. He's kind of held them together along with, some of the older guys, Pennington, Hurtado, Hrustich, and such.
Yeah, the bullpen has been pitching very well. Josh Randall, again, kind of the streakiness, but Gabriel Reyes has seemed like he's kind of settled in a little bit. So it's good to see, and I'm glad because I was kind of worried there for a minute about him.
He kind of ran out of gas in the sixth yesterday, but for 5 innings, he did look really good.
Yeah, I was texting Raj as that was happening.
I was like, he's about to get called up finally.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's going through 5, and then they're like, oh, hit walk, and he's done.
As I was going through the turnpike. So speaking of another postseason team potentially here.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Rayner Castillo. Too, we should mention.
Oh yeah,
best start of the year.
Yeah, looked a lot better. So that was encouraging toward the second half.
Yeah, the velocity seemed like it was holding better too. It was like so when we saw him in Lansing, the velocity seemed like it was coming back a little bit, Chris. I mean, as was pitch log in there.
Yeah, he was mostly like he was like 93, 95, and then
95,
he hit 96 I think a couple times. We're like, oh, well, you haven't seen that much, but then like that was a strange game where they scored 13 runs in one inning. He had to sit for like an hour, and he was more like 90, 92 in his final inning. So, but I don't know. We've seen it in the past. If you've seen it in the past, you can hope to see it again in the future. And having him have a nice start is a good place to begin.
Yeah.
Speaking of good starts.
Yeah, speaking of good starts, Jude Warwick, one player of the week, had a really good week. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, going 5 for 12 at the plate. Chris Rodriguez,
not so much.
Not so much. Came down to earth a little bit.
It's he's a young power hitter. There's going to be a lot of that. But I mean, Kelvis Salcedo started the first 5 innings of a combined no hitter, 7-inning no hitter. But and looked good. I was talking to Roger about him yesterday. It looks like a legit fastball breaking ball mix that might probably a bullpen guy down the road, but it looks like it might work in that role.
Yep. And he's young enough to hope, that he can put more together. Kind of not like the prototypical frame. I mean, he's thick, but he's not like a 6'4" guy that you think is going to fill out into a consistent, 95, 96 type guy. But yeah, maybe out of the bullpen. Definitely has a pretty nasty breaking ball when he's feeling it.
Yeah, that's a good call there by Colin Miguel
Molina.
Yeah, Molina.
Mm-hmm.
Put together a good start there. I'm trying to find
He's a young lefty.
My boy Jank still doing pretty well.
Yeah, he had a really nice start, his previous start, and then the last one, I don't know. I think he may have been 30 pitch limit. Something happened, but yeah, his most recent start before that, I put it up on our YouTube page. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe to our YouTube. You see it. You see it with him. You see the mid. It's a fastball. It's like 93, 95. You see flashes the breaking ball, flashes the changeup, and he's a big, strong kid. It's there's promise there.
Yeah, and then
if you want to be way ahead of the curve, you really should follow that YouTube page. Go check that out because like the cuts you guys are putting up of all the starts, especially from the younger guys, you're not going to get any of that anywhere else. Certainly the beat writers have no idea. That's high level stuff that you want, and that's the kind of content that you can get there and kind of be ahead of the curve with the guys that are coming next. So yeah.
You can listen. You can read the speculation of Lynn Henning and who doesn't watch any of the games, or you can actually get the stuff from us who actually watch. And it literally takes 2 seconds to subscribe.
Yeah.
Just take 2 seconds to subscribe, and you're well on your way. And that goes a long way. But also, I mean, did we mention this guy? Sorry, go ahead. I've been wanting to play that for a long time.
I'm absolutely setting myself up to get highly disappointed because this is just the DSL. But that kid looks really good to me. He's not the biggest kid either, and he may never throw much harder than he does right now. But but yeah, Yonan Koba, 18 years old.
Sorry, Colin Arthur from the top rope.
Colin's. That's why Colin's dude. Colin's the man. Like Colin, I love that kid, man. I really do. He's such a. Sorry, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's weird. People will be like, "Hey, let's talk about Jace Young and his opportunity to help the big league club." I'm like, no. Let me talk about the DSL pitcher Yonan Koba.
Yes.
No, it's fun to watch. To me, I've seen him. 4 or 5 outings now. He's touched 97 at his best. It's more like 92, 94. But again, like an 18-year-old holding that for 5 innings. He'll when I first saw him, I was like, oh, he doesn't have feel for the breaking ball, but his changeup looks good. These last couple outings, the breaking ball looks good too. So it's a decent breaking ball, right? Like I'm not going to go crazy and say it's a hammer or anything like that, but he's got feel for 3 pitches. He throws a lot of strikes. He looks athletic. He looks to me like a guy that you would use a fairly high draft pick on, and they just have him down in the minors and nobody's talking about him other than us.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's and not to mention too, what I like about there was the what was that shortstop that the guy was a shortstop of the Twins. And we got some
Amari Daniel.
Yeah, Omari Daniel too. I thought it looks intriguing too, and that's another guy who has some potential with him.
Yeah, and then one other player I want to mention is Samuel Sanchez, who I've been sending Raj tweets or texts about him because he's a Cuban.
Yeah.
And you look at it, and he's almost 20 in the DSL, and so you're like, But then you look into it some more, and he was a late signing out of Cuba in 2023. So, basically right after he turned right before he turned 18. So not super old. And then he missed all of last year with an injury. So this is his first year of actually playing professional baseball, and he's destroying the pitching down there. He hit his 4th home run today. He's hitting like 400 with a 20% walk rate, and he's stealing some bases, hitting for power. And I don't know. He just suddenly has become an interesting player to me. Who knows? You don't get a great look at him from the cameras there, so I don't know if there's anything there. But it's just kind of fun that this other kid is popping up from out of nowhere, and I want to follow and see what he does next year.
Yeah, just as process, like finding those guys and just like, just make your list. If you're really interested in following prospects at home, make your list, keep an eye on those guys and just kind of see how it goes. At that age, unless someone has completely exploded, the variables and the potential outcomes are so broad. You can't really say anything, but you can trust Chris's eye for like someone who's like at least useful and potentially interesting to watch.
Yeah.
So,
Well, especially Sanchez. I mean,
despite your rampant modesty, sir.
No, the thing about Sanchez too is like it falls into the philosophy of the Houston Astros, where they sign guys that are a little older, and they were still serviceable. I mean, it was more on the pitching side of things, but I mean, I would love to see the reason why I'm outside of me being Cuban, of course, but it's also just. The Tigers need some more of that international flavor to their, for all the money they're spending and investing into it. You like to see some of the fruits of the labor pay off with that. So I hopefully there's something that comes of that. But and especially that's seems like a scouting move there too. Like somebody that spotted him like somewhere and was like, we got to sign this guy. And so that was something that came up tonight on Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh. It was like just the amount of the scouting. The dynamic, and I wanted to end the podcast with this because I think the amount of scouting wins of signing indie guys like Patrick Lee, some of these guys that have come in the core that have been part of the roster between West Michigan, Erie, all the affiliates have really helped the Tigers kind of cultivate this winning organization. Next to the Mets, Mets also had 3 teams going to the postseason in the minor leagues. Just worth mentioning that, like, the amount of good scouts that are out there with the Tigers now that seem like they popping up with these scouting wins is worth mentioning. I mean, it's I think if they didn't have the ability to tap into the indie ball and get some of these little victories, I think we'd be talking a different story here.
And it's just a different time now too. I mean, the draft used to be way longer. It's 20 rounds now, so there's a lot more guys that in the past would have at least got to rookie ball and kind of been in the the pen of wild young colts that they were trying to break. They're not there anymore. Now you have to go to indie ball. Now you have to go to Mexico, or you have to go to Asia. And the Tigers are pretty well positioned because, and we talked about this on the Ryan Walsh podcast too, Ryan Walsh show. Everyone should check that out. Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh. But I talked about that as well. That the Tigers seem to have done a pretty good job of like combining like the advanced scouting with numbers and all the metrics and data that's available, and being able to project like what guys we can help and this and that, with having all the groundwork and like, scouting small schools, finding undrafted free agents like Jason Foley or Wilmer Flores. And like, not all these guys are going to work out. Wilmer Flores might never end up turning into anything, but there was a time when you could have traded Wilmer Flores for like a really good reliever or a back end starter. So all that stuff has value, and they don't seem to have left any stones unturned in that regard. They're still out there scouting, talking to a lot of people, casting a really wide net. And we've seen them pick up guys from the Frontier League. We talked about Richard Gouache earlier, who they picked up out of Mexican Pro Ball. They're doing a lot more of that, and that just seems more and more the way it has to go to really fill out the system. And as we've also talked about lots of times, the Tigers don't really have too many guys anymore that are like, there's no chance in hell this guy could ever even play a game in the major leagues. That's still the default position for most prospects, but the Tigers have a lot less guys like that in their system now who are still just like hanging around than they used to. they're churning things through for guys who have tools like Patrick Lee or Zach Lee, or Bennett Lee, or how you Lee. Just going to mention all the Lees, but so it's just really interesting to watch the way they've kind of combined like the new school, which I think people look at Scott Harris and think like, okay, well, super nerd, big computer guy, Jeff Greenberg, big computer guy. It's all stats and data with these guys, but they really haven't done it that way. They've really done a nice job combining that with all the old school approach, and I think you see more of that too in the way AJ Hinch talks about his team now, where he doesn't want to talk about like all the numbers anymore. He wants to talk about team building and culture because they've got all the numbers right. It's not like they're ignoring all that. They've got that dialed and broken down as much as they can into, usable incremental numbers that they can kind of thin slice samples with, but they're still very invested in like, can this guy play? Does this guy work hard? Does this guy really want to play? Does this guy's parents like drive him to say all the right things? And secretly, he doesn't want anything to do with this. Like they've got a lot of angles covered there, and I think it's a good sign for the future that they kind of do all of it well, rather than like having some really simplistic, like one size fits all type approach, which a lot of teams do. Even teams that are successful, like the Rays and the Astros, got really typish for a while, and seem maybe to have backed off of that. You see more sinkers now again with the Rays and the Astros, whereas they were the high four seam, power curveball guys for a long time. So, yeah, overall, I think they're casting a wide net and doing a lot of things right.
Yeah, and it's good to reflect on the draft. There'll be a draft. Like I said, there's gonna be the draft coverage is gonna be kicking up a notch here this week, coming up in the next pretty much from here on out, over at Tigers ML Report. We are going to be doing a couple of things behind the Patreon wall for draft stuff, so stay tuned for that. John, with the final question of the night, how do you think the player movement will affect the chances of our first half winners in the second half? John, it's a really good question, and I think – oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, I mean, I would be curious what you have to say. Sorry.
No, here's the thing. I think with Erie, based off what I've seen in Binghamton, I think Binghamton might win the Eastern League this year. I really think that they have a good chance to do it.
But if Erie gets, McGonigal, Bracino, and Clark, then the Erie Seawolves are going to be the team to beat. Yes. And the West Michigan Whitecaps are going to kind of fall on their face.
West Michigan will have a good chance to fall on their face. However, what concerns me is if Erie can't get – Erie needs a little more pitching. They did, like the Tigers, they need another couple starters because right now they're starting like – who knows what's going on with Jake Miller. We haven't heard anything about Miller in a while. Yeah. If Miller comes back, then I feel a lot better about it. But like, it really depends on how they built out the rotation. I as far as the big three going over there to help out, absolutely. I think that's the good case to have. But I mean, the bullpen, I think the Erie's bullpen's gonna be fine. It's just the way I worry about the rotation. Yeah. Lakeland, I think Lakeland might surprise people. Chris, I really, or Brandon, both of you guys, I think that Lakeland could win the Florida State League. They came pretty close. They came within a rain out last year because Gabriel Reyes was supposed to pitch, and they got rained out.
Yeah.
No.
They
started the game, so he had to get out there and pitch, and then they was like an hour and a half rain delay, and he couldn't pitch. But I mean, they won last year. They made it to the final game on the backs of guys like Franyerber, Montilla, who came up from the Complex League, and I think we'll see that. I think we'll see Jude Warwick in Lakeland at the end of the year. Probably Enrique Jimenez, a couple other fun rookie level. Maybe we'll get Jank Diaz there. So I don't even care if they win. It's just fun to see those guys up there playing meaningful games. I do think West Michigan might be in trouble, but then again, like there should be some veterans on that team. Like if they bring up, you could see Pennington and Strong coming up from Lakeland, maybe, and they Callahan coming back and Peck will be there, and
Cole Turney.
Yeah, they have some veteran guys there who could give them a chance to win. It's just not going to be super exciting if you don't have those three top 100 prospects. And Erie, who knows? I mean, if it's still Trey Cruz and Chris Myers and Jake Holton, it feels like they can win the Eastern League with their eyes closed now because they've already done it twice. And it came close the year before. But
that kind of goes to the one problem in the system this year, which is they drafted Paul Wilson, they drafted Ethan Scheffelbein, they drafted Owen Hall, they drafted Zach Swanson. Everybody's hurt. Most of these young pitchers that they took, Jonathan Rogers, they took a lot of young pitching that 2 or 3 years from now might all come back around, and all of a sudden we're looking at, and then the Tigers are a pitching development juggernaut. But right now they don't look like that because they drafted a crap ton of prep pitchers, and they all got hurt or struggling or whatever. So that'll be something to watch. It would be nice to see a couple guys kind of break out. Like, it would be nice. I mean, we have our eyes on Rainer Castillo and Gabriel Reyes and some of those guys, Joseph Montalvo. We'd like to see, at least one or two of those guys like have a strong second half. Hopefully Jake Miller will come back. It'd be neat if Surwa can continue to kind of refine things, because I don't really know what you do with a Kenny Surwa, but he's interesting.
Yeah, you pitch him as much as you can. No, I mean, maybe it's Andrew Sears this year who, like, you mentioned him earlier. It kind of pops up a little. I am curious. We don't need to get too far into the draft talk, but I am curious if they may go after a pitcher with one of those first two picks, and maybe even a college pitcher. They haven't done it yet. Yeah, I mentioned on the show. We all did the show with Ryan Walsh tonight. Like, if Gage Wood is somehow still there at 24, because not that long ago he was not considered even like a first round pick, and then he threw a 19 strikeout no hitter in the College World Series, which is generally going to move your draft stack up. But he has a pretty nasty fastball breaking ball combination, and he might be fun at 24. But I mentioned my dream scenario, which is basically just trying the Jackson Merrill James Wood draft all over again. There's a kid named Josh Owens who is really moving up draft boards as a shortstop, maybe potential outfielder, left-handed hitter, 6'3", athletic, probably going to grow into some power. His dad played pro ball for 18 years without ever making it to the majors, and had like 300 homers and 300 steals. It's just like, a minor league, independent league legend. So you get your Jackson Merrill at 24, and then your James Wood at 34, Quentin Young. Same size as James Young or James Wood, 6'7", tons of power, huge arm. Might not hit, but if he does, he's a James Wood, like top 5, outfielder in the game. So that's my dream scenario. It won't happen because it's my dream.
Right. I mentioned Owens. I also mentioned Kason Cunningham, and feeding him crap tons of Wheaties and steroids and turning him into a beast, because I mean, really, really interesting pure hitter, I think. So and another, we're going to bring up all the left-handed hitting prep shortstops because that's what the Tigers have done. But who knows? I mean, the Tigers are about value too, and I don't know, maybe a whole bunch of college players drop and they take 2 college players, and we're like, what the hell?
Yeah, it'd be odd.
It's really hard to predict.
Yeah, if they did what I wanted them to do last year, this year, like, remember, I wanted Cam Ward so bad.
Yeah.
Not Cam Ward.
Yeah,
Cam Smith.
Cam Smith.
Cam Ward was the first pick in the draft, right? The NFL draft.
Not to be confused with the former Carolina Hurricanes goalie. I think he was.
Also the Miami Hurricanes quarterback.
Yes, that's true.
But of course, the Tigers have to find value, right? They've got a smaller bonus pool. Well, it's not that much smaller than it was last year, but relative to everyone else, it's a little bit smaller. So you never know. They might surprise us and decide there's a college value there. Maybe some of these other teams who haven't really known what they were doing seemingly the last few years suddenly realize, like, all the smart teams seem to be, staffing up these prep up the middle guys like hotcakes. Maybe we should do that. And then we're left out, trying to figure something else out. And maybe the Tigers then go super value and just spread their pool all over the place. It's hard to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but we'll be doing
lots
of time. A lot of time left to talk about it. Yep.
So, all right. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. And a special shout out to the Erie Seawolves, who allowed me to have locker room access like any other press reporter out there. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
good coverage.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for the hospitality as always. Those fine folks over there in Erie. Much obliged. And Brandon, is there anything you want to pimp out on Bless You Boys?
Yeah, my new writer, Alex Cannon at the corner over there, has a really interesting post out on Gleyber Torres and the Seager stat, which is basically about like swing decisions, kind of beyond like K-walk. Like it goes a little deeper than that. So that one's pretty interesting. There's a couple things like that to check out there. He'd be very happy if you clicked on his article and read it. And I, as his bean counter and editor, would also do that.
I love that particular, that was a baseball prospectus metric like they invented 2 years ago.
There's always some new metric.
Yeah, it's basically about swinging at balls that you could do damage on, and like Seager swings at everything he can hit in the zone.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If you can make contact and make that happen. But yeah, they like I said, there's we have the Erie breakdown of how the Erie got there this year. There is a couple things on the Patreon too that Jerry's been working some player profiles. So keep it classy, everybody. And I'm trying to find the music bed, and I can't. All of a sudden, there it is. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Do acapella version.
Everybody.
Have a good night, everybody. All right, let's get to the good stuff, gentlemen.
Break out our rendition of The Lion Sleeps Tonight or something. We'll rename it the Tiger